Today we're taking a deep dive into the critically acclaimed anime, Haikyuu. Story and narrative. Right out of the gate, the story comes in at a massive 9.5 out of 10. That is an absolutely elite score. And our two main players brilliantly illustrate exactly why the story scores so incredibly high. Over on one side, we've got Shoyo Hinata. He's short, sure, but he is extremely energetic and totally determined. He actually becomes completely obsessed with volleyball after seeing this legendary player known as the Little Giant. Then across the net, we have Tobio Kageyama. He's a highly talented setter, fiercely competitive, and honestly, initially very difficult to work with. Naturally, these two start out as bitter rivals. But when they both end up at Karasuno High School, that rivalry, it turns into this reluctant, electric partnership. Character development. We are looking at a perfect 10 out of 10 for character development. You really don't see perfect scores very often, but honestly, this is arguably the anime's single biggest strength. I mean, just look at the sheer depth of this roster. From Daichi, Sugawara, Nishinoya, Tanaka, Tsukishima, and Asahi rounding out the Karasuno squad, all the way to powerhouses across the net like Bokuto, Okaiwa, Kenma, and Kruo. Every single name here has a distinct, fully fleshed out personality. Even the rival teams receive deeply meaningful development. They're never treated as just disposable villains just because they're playing against our protagonists. The show respects the opponents just as much as the home team, which is a real game changer. Volleyball tactics. Another perfect 10 out of 10. This time, it's for volleyball and strategy. You see, the show doesn't just use the sport as some cool background dressing, it genuinely respects the real-world mechanics of the game. The show actually teaches you aren't just watching a game anymore. You are literally learning how to read the court like a pro. Sights, sounds, and comedy. Looking at the production metrics, we're seeing incredibly high marks across the board. Sound and music pull a huge 9.5. Animation sits at a solid 9, and comedy brings up the rear with an 8.5. Now, our source does note that while earlier seasons have a very distinctive visual identity, the later seasons kind of change the character design slightly. Some viewers feel the animation loses a tiny bit of its visual weight and polish later on, but even with that slight visual shift, the dramatic atmosphere and the energetic comedy keep the overall production value soaring incredibly high. If you want to know exactly why the sound gets that massive 9.5, this quote captures it perfectly. Dramatic music combined with crowd noise, footsteps, whistles, and the sound of the volleyball makes major points feel considerably more intense. You can practically hear the squeak of the sneakers on the hardwood just thinking about it. And those energetic opening and ending themes, they perfectly match the vibrant personality of the series, pulling you right into the stadium alongside the crowd. And frankly, you really need that energy because the tension can get so high. That's exactly where the comedy comes in. It naturally adds fun and keeps the anime from becoming overwhelmingly serious. A lot of this humor arises supernaturally from the clashing personalities of the players. That some of the jokes get repeated a few times and can become slightly predictable over time, but overall, it gives you that essential breathing room between all those high-stakes rallies. Emotional weight. The pacing receives an 8 out of 10, which is great, but it does have some notable flaws. For one, some viewers might find the pacing drags a bit outside of the major matches. Also, because that roster we looked at earlier is so incredibly massive, it definitely limits the individual screen time for certain characters. Plus, many games tend to follow a somewhat predictable dramatic pattern or structure. And finally, while flashbacks and internal thoughts make the plays feel super meaningful, the show sometimes spends just a little too much time on them. This can occasionally interrupt the actual flow and momentum of the game itself. The absolute best aspect of the series, making both victory and defeat deeply emotional and meaningful. Because the characters learn about realistic, grounded concepts like confidence, adaptability, discipline, and leadership, their growth isn't just about getting physically stronger to hit a ball harder. The final score. The final rating stands tall at a 9.1 out of 10. The verdict? Highly recommended. Seriously, if you're a sports fan, if you love competitive dramas, or if you're just looking for a fantastic tale about teamwork and overcoming failure, this is absolutely the series for you. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought as we walk off the court today. Is losing actually the most important step to winning? Haikyuu makes a remarkably powerful case that without the heartbreak of a dropped point, the triumph of a hard-earned victory just wouldn't mean quite as much.